Welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. Hey everyone, I'm Mark Moyer, author of Win Again, speaker, career coach, and business advisor. And I help athletes, executives, and entrepreneurs reach their fullest potential. What you're going to be hearing in every single episode are conversations with athletes and other sports-related influencers. And we'll be offering you the insight that you need to succeed in life, including advice that will let you jump past your competition, whether it be for a great new job or taking your business to a much, much higher level. Make sure to connect with me on social media at Mark Moyer Coach and go to my website, markmoyer.com, to get access to the tips and strategies that my coaching clients get directly. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email to mark@markmoyer.com and I'll get you going right away. Thanks for joining me today. It's going to be an awesome episode. Now, are you ready to make your mark? Let's do this. Hey everyone, and welcome to the Make Your Mark podcast. I'm broadcasting live from podcast headquarters here in New York City, and I hope all is awesome wherever you're listening, whether it's here in the United States, Canada, Mexico, Uruguay, or anywhere else on this planet. And as you can tell, I'm in an awesome mood because I just had the chance to speak with Amobi Okugo. And Amobi is such a nice guy. This guy played and has been playing Major League Soccer for 8 years with 3 different teams. He's not only an athlete, but this guy is doing so much work for athletes. He's got his own company, a Frugal Athlete, and it's really meant to increase the financial literacy of not just athletes, but non-athletes, and helping them figure out, okay, they've got this chunk of money. Now what do they do? He's a great guy. You're going to love this conversation. We cover tons of ground. We both share advice on how to maximize our presence and how to really do the right thing, not just financially, but across the board. And wait till you hear this episode's Hit Your Mark segment. I put Amobi a little bit on the defensive, but he came through it like a champ. You're going to love it. But before we get started, if you haven't done so already, check out the podcast on iTunes, leave a review, subscribe, get involved. Send me a note to mark@markmoyer.com. I'd love to hear from you. All right, let's get things rolling right now with Amobi. You're going to love it. Happy listening. Amobi, thanks so much for being my guest on the Make Your Mark podcast. I'm really excited to have you on board here simply because you are a perfect symbol of just the type of guest I like to have. Somebody who is not only an athlete and somebody who has been involved in the sports industry and someone who has plenty of connection there, but also someone who's making a positive impact. And clearly you and your company, a Frugal Athlete, and a lot of the other things you've been doing and your continued education, I think really makes you a significant role model for not just athletes, but non-athletes as well. So welcome to the show. Thrilled to have you here. How's it going out on the West Coast?
No, I appreciate you having me. It's going well. You know, like I said, California is the best state in the whole United States. So it's always good to be back in California and close to home.
I think you've been breathing too much of that smoky air because I do not think that California would be. Listen, there have been lots of discussions of California seceding from the Union, and I think I've voted for that. So, no, it's funny. I've got lots of relatives that live out in LA and in Lake Tahoe and in Big Bear Mountain. I mean, all over the place. And I'm always listening to them with all their stuff. So anyway, well, thanks for joining me. You know, I think what I want to do is jump right into a couple of different things. One of them is, you know, you've played professional soccer for a long time. Obviously, you know what you're doing on the pitch, on the field. But tell me a little bit more about about your career with the Portland Timbers and where things stand now and where you want them to go from the soccer standpoint.
Yeah, so specifically with the Portland Timbers, I was playing there the last 2 years. I've played a total of about 8 years. After my first freshman year at UCLA, I had the opportunity and blessing to go professional and pursue my professional dreams. So I started out, got drafted to Philadelphia, played there for 5 years, signed a new contract with the Orlando team. From Orlando, I got traded to Kansas City. And then after Kansas City, I was picked up by Portland Timbers. And it's been quite a journey, many blessings, many ups and downs, but that's how sports go. And I've been really fortunate to play this long, but for me personally, I'm trying to get to 10 years at least, at the very least. So if I can play 2 more years, I feel like that would be my cap. Anything that happens after that is a blessing. If nothing happens after that, then so be it. Currently, I'm a free agent. At the end of last year, after we got out of the playoffs, my contract option was declined, and so I've been a free agent right now, kind of scouring the market both domestically and overseas, and trying to figure out the best situation for the future of my career.
All right, so here's your chance. Let's just say we've got representatives from various teams listening in. Give me your 20-second pitch on your skill set on the field.
Oh my gosh, you're putting me on the spot.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I would just like to say, consistent, stable presence. I feel like, whether I'm playing center mid or center back, you know what you're going to get from me. A solid performance. Never too high, never too low. I just like to be able to, put the trust in a coach's decision if they put me on the field. And I feel like over the course of my 8 years, I've done that way more often than not. So that's my 20-second elevator pitch.
Yeah, that's a short elevator ride, but it's good. Now, but here's my point also. I'll throw in there that, I think you provide a lot of value added. Like if I'm a coach and I'm running a team, I want to bring in players that can contribute on the field, but I also want players that can do so off the field and in the locker room and, out there in the community. And unfortunately, there are some players that maybe don't mesh so well, or maybe they're really focused on themselves and they're not really contributing elsewhere. And to me, what makes you a potentially valuable teammate to have on my team is the intangibles that you bring. I mean, you're a smart guy. You're clearly well-educated, but more so well-educated and almost like in life, right? I mean, you've been immersed on the financial side of things for a long time, and you could be advising your teammates on certain things. I mean, I think that one of the things I would do if I was you, and talking about myself and what I bring to a team, is not just what I bring on the field, but also what I bring off the field. So you may want to incorporate that into your. I know I put you on the spot, but try to always make it second nature, where you say, look, my value as a member of your team goes far beyond what I provide on the pitch or on the field. What I do is I also contribute to, whether it's I love doing a lot of philanthropic stuff or charity work and with the team. I also like to help my teammates with a lot of things that they don't necessarily understand so well. So I mean, I think that could be an important element of what you bring to the table. And then the other thing is, you didn't really necessarily say, but I'm curious, are you more of an offensive midfielder or defensive? What's
Oh no, sorry, I'm more of a defensive center mid, or okay. Yeah. So I get blamed for the goals, and I do the dirty works for the offensive guys to make their magic happen.
Oh, excellent. But you know what? To me, there's a lot of value in that as well, because everybody likes to think that they're the offensive stud, right? Or studette out there. So the fact that you can be the guy that's like it's almost like the, offensive lineman in NFL football, where they don't really get the accolades, but they do all the dirty work. So that's great.
Exactly.
Cool. Now, have you ever given thought to playing overseas?
Oh, yes. I mean, playing overseas has always been a dream of mine. But when I originally left UCLA, the opportunity domestically was just more, how should I say? I think it was just better for me, starting out closer to home, getting my feet wet. And then there's been a couple opportunities to play overseas throughout my career, but nothing ever materialized. And then right now, while I'm a free agent, this would probably be the most ideal chance for me to go overseas, whether it's, a first division or second division, somewhere overseas. So hopefully something works out. We'll see. I might have to use your new approach to get something done.
Well, that's great. I think you should. Obviously, I'm a little biased, of course, but I think that when you focus on sort of the overall, I mean, I think you hear a lot about it now, much more than ever, that when coaches are looking for players on their team, they're looking at a lot of different elements and not just what they're doing on the field. And so I think that you're accomplishing so much off the field that I think that can only add to what you bring on the field. So, start thinking about the best way to incorporate that. Now, I'm going to talk in a few minutes about the company that you founded and you're running. It's called a Frugal Athlete, and it's a I love what you're doing. I think it's absolutely essential, and it's a great service to not just athletes but non-athletes as well. But before I jump into that, I guess I'm curious, what was it that got you involved in financial literacy and as you say, wealth creation? What happened what was that day or days when you were like, you know what? If I put my pennies together, I'll do this. What got you started in that?
To be honest, I mean, growing up, I've always been interested in like business and finance. Like I remember like going to school and my mom would like pack me like proper lunches, not like PB&J. She would pack me like rice and vegetables and chicken wings.
Yeah.
And I'd start telling her to give me extra chicken wings and I'd sell them at school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like stuff like that. And then like when I was in residency for the U17 national team program, we would get free Nike gear, and like some of the gear I wouldn't wear, and then I just return it to the store and get cash back because we used to get like so much gear. So I've always been interested in like business and finance and just being like frugal in a sense. But it really wasn't until I saw the 30 for 30 Broke documentary where I was like, whoa, like I thought I was doing good. I needed to raise it to another level, because if these athletes that are making these many dollars are still struggling financially, then imagine me playing soccer in the United States where, the compensation isn't as high. You have to be just 10 times smarter and 10 times more disciplined. So it wasn't until I saw that documentary where I was really, kind of on a mission to learn more about financial literacy, be smart with the finances, and kind of try to make a change.
That's great. So what, and now I'm actually going to be thinking about packing my son less lunch because now he's going to be selling it. Jeez. But anyway, probably not what I make him. But anyway, so taking a step back, let's say, I mean, look, obviously you advise athletes. That's what you're doing with your business. But what do you think are some of the key mistakes? Maybe just list 2 or 3 mistakes that you see athletes, whether they're maybe just coming out of college, they're collegiate, or even professional athletes, regardless of the sport. What are some of the things that they're doing that you think that they should fix?
I'll just give 3 right now.
Yeah.
Trying to compete with their teammates in terms of like, basically another way of trying to live like the Joneses, but on a team basis. Not having the right team. And then, the third one is not being afraid to like ask questions, I guess. So those would be my 3.
So those are great, actually, and very spot on. But because it's interesting that when you say don't compete with the teammates, because there's so much of that does go on across the board. It's not just money, but it's almost everything. Because look, on the field, it's probably usually pretty common knowledge that there's some of the players are really, really good, and there's others that are pretty good, and then there's others that are almost like they're there and they're helping the team win, but they're not as good, right? And same thing in baseball. You've got batters 1 through 9, where the 9th batter is typically the least capable of batting, but they're all part of the team, right? So in the locker room, there's probably different types of competition where they might be, I'm making this up, but there might be a ping pong thing going, or there might be whatever else going on. But at the same time, you're right. There's always that, hey, check out my new Mercedes. It's nicer than your whatever. And you're right. It's almost like one-upmanship. And it's something that needs to be sort of stemmed. But how would you advise, let's say I'm your client and I tell you that I play whatever it is, football for the Chicago Bears, and I'm 23 years old. I've just been given a nice juicy contract and I'm pretty fired up to play this year. But I read an article that you wrote, and I want to also make sure that I'm not being stupid. When you say don't compete with your teammates, what would you recommend?
Oh, so like, like you say, like this scenario, 23-year-old playing for Chicago, just signed right out of college. Like, you may have a lot of money, but you don't have the money next to the, franchise tag QB or the veteran linebacker or the guy who, just signed a new deal. You're still on a rookie contract. Your contract may or may not be guaranteed depending on where and when you signed. So just understand your situation, kind of get your feet wet, understand how the league works, how everything off the field works, because going from college to the NFL is different. You have players that are playing, to put food on the table, that, that take care of a family. And then in college, you just worry about school and playing. So now that you have bills, or now that you have a contract and now you have bills to pay, you have a little money in your pockets, don't go and do what everyone else is doing, because you don't know their situation. You don't know what their money's looking like. So just focus on what you're making and how you can kind of prolong what you're making to last a lifetime, because the average career in the NFL, for this example, is 3 to 4 years.
Right. So I think that's spot on. And in fact, for somebody that's that age and probably not too financial literate, they'll see a big chunk of money in their bank account, and they'll be like, "Oh my God, this is amazing!" Exactly. And they'll be like, they won't understand what that means. So, and they might say, "Well, look, if I've got 1.8 million in my account, or even if I have 180,000 in my account, well, wait a minute, I can buy a house for 180. So there we go." And they don't realize all the additional costs that go with that, the maintenance, everything else. And they're not really, unfortunately, really taught that. So that's why, what you're doing in your service is fantastic, because the whole point is to educate these people so that they're going into it in the right position, right?
Exactly.
And so once you start talking to them, do you find that, one of your clients, the clients are open to the suggestions, or are they sometimes resistant? What's usual? How do you feel?
It's tough because, as an athlete, that competitive fire that you talked about, that ego that you talked about, everyone wants to think they know it all. And if they don't, they're too afraid to ask. So like one of the most important things is, trying to be comfortable in your situation. Can't take for granted the opportunity that you're playing a sport for a living, and you're getting compensated for it. So even if it's not as much, or is it too much, you don't want to lose all the hard work you got to that point just because you're being indisciplined with your financial spending, your spending habits, your budget. So it's important to kind of get open up and ask the questions. There's no wrong question when it comes to your finances or in life. But that's kind of been difficult, just to get people to talk about it, get people to open up, be comfortable, because people judge people, and if you don't know something, it's kind of frowned upon. But in order to get better, you have to learn, and in order to learn, you have to ask questions.
Well, absolutely right. I mean, it's I think that especially when you're young and you feel a little bit bulletproof, you also feel that there's a little bit of I kind of know it all. And the back part of your brain says, no, actually, I don't know it all. But the front part of your brain is like saying, shut up, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. Right.
And it's like, well, I'm making this much money, so if I mess up, I'll make it back. Like that athlete, like, you feel like your contract's never going to go away. It's like, oh, I'll make it back. If I make a mistake, I'll make it back. And that's not the case all the time.
Well, right. And I also think that, I remember when I was that age where I felt really weird asking people that were in their, for argument's sake, 30s or 40s or 50s questions or advice, because I don't know, I was intimidated or whatever it was. And so I think that a lot of what you bring to the table, Amobi, is that you're a young guy, you're an athlete, and you happen to know all this stuff. So that makes you someone that I think people can truly, completely identify with and collaborate with and say, well, this guy knows what I'm going through. He's gone through it. Right. So that's where you stand. But you know what? I want to give a better introduction to a frugal athlete, because we didn't really get into that. But you are the founder, CEO, the president, the main man, the big cheese, the big kahuna, el numero uno, the main man of a frugal athlete. But take me back a couple of years to, what was it that one day you woke up and said, ding, I'm going to be the big kahuna today?
Yeah, so as we were speaking about earlier, I saw the 30 for 30 documentary Broke,
right,
highlighting athletes that, went broke. So I was like, I'm trying to find athletes that were smart with their money. And what I kept finding were athletes like LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Tom Brady, Magic Johnson, guys that are anomalies in their sport. Will never have to worry about, monetary situations unless they're like outrageously unintelligent with their money, or more players that went broke. I can never find that gap of players that may or may not be higher level or well known, that were making smart decisions, being smart with their career decisions, and smart and frugal with their financial decisions. So it was basically talking with my brother, my best friend, both involved in basketball, both at the collegiate and now NBA level. And we just decided, like, all right, let's create a platform where we showcase professional athletes and student athletes that are prudent in their financial decisions and smart in their career decisions. And then increase financial literacy by doing that. And by doing that, we will kind of encourage what it means to be a frugal athlete, because we feel like athletes are natural trendsetters. So if athletes are, being smart with their money, then the fans that are watching them grow up, the 13 to 22-year-olds that, aspire to be pro because they want to spend all this money, they'll start thinking more prudent in their financial decisions and career decisions as well. So that was kind of the full start to it.
That's great. And so how did what was the plan on getting your first set of clients? Like who did you go after first, kind of a thing?
To be honest, just people that I already knew. Luckily, I've been playing soccer for quite a while. I know quite a number of people, and then my younger brother, he knows quite a bit of people in the NBA and NFL realm. So just kind of using our network and going from there. To be honest, we don't really do too much. We want to build the credibility first, and that's why we kind of focus primarily on the website, trying to just give out the information so athletes can come and look and kind of take it to their own financial playbook. But we definitely want to increase our management consulting arm of the business. But right now we just want to build the credibility, because like you said, and like we talked about earlier, that trust factor is very important. So we don't want to be the website, telling people to go sign up here or invest in this thing. We want to be able to, build credibility, show that the most important thing is to be frugal, to understand your financial situation, to be financially literate, so you have the ability to ask the right questions, and to have the resources to have the right team, to know how to say no when someone's asking you for money, to learn how to read a business deck, to find other resources to learn more, whether it's books or podcasts. So that's what we're really, really focusing on right now. But as time goes on, we'll definitely want to build out our client services. And that's kind of the vision for it.
That's great. And so, one of the things I like to do, I among, the advising athletes on how to transition into the workforce, I also like to advise athletes on their businesses. And, one of the things that I really like to push towards is the idea of envisioning what it is that your potential client, the athlete who may not be frugal now, but you want them to be frugal, what are they going to be doing when they look at your website what's their vantage point going to be, and what's going to compel them to want to click on that, contact Amobi and see what we can do for you, kind of a thing. And I've been going through your website. I love it. I think it's a well done website. You've got some great stories in there, articles, insights, etc. But I think what I'd love to see more of is a way that they can directly engage. I feel like they're going to spend a lot of time on there, but I want them to have more things that they can do. What kind of, like, let's say I'm going in here for the first time and you were going to just sort of say, Mark, why don't you go to this page? This will draw you in. This will show you what we do. But more importantly, here's how you can ideally spend money with us, right? So how can I spend money with you right now?
To be honest, right now, you would have to contact us and then pay us to do some management services. But I understand what you're saying with the website. I feel like in terms of the website, if you're not familiar with it, you can kind of get in the rabbit hole, because what we like to show is showcase. We have the Team Frugal segments where we showcase an athlete every week that's kind of been what we like to call a frugal athlete. So has showcased what it means to be prudent financially or made a smart career decision. And I think that's kind of the way we kind of bait the reader or the athlete, because they can see clear examples of athletes that are current or former that they can kind of aspire to or learn from. Like, for example, Paul Rabel, he plays lacrosse. Yep. And that's a sport that doesn't compensate as nearly as high as, the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL. But, his net worth and his ability to kind of market himself as a professional lacrosse player shows exactly what it means to be a frugal athlete, and shows exactly how another athlete that may or may not be the star player in their sport can kind of maximize what it means to be a professional athlete. Or they can go on Team Frugal and see, Junior Bridgman, who was an NBA basketball player that played in the 80s, and how he was able to, build a fortune off the field that's worth over $300 million because of the connections he made through basketball and being smart with his money while his career started to help set him up long after his career was over. So different segments like that, where we can kind of engage the audience, has really been the way we attract the readers, the athletes. But in terms of down the road, we're definitely going to have to make it, at least the website, way more organized in terms of, all right, educational, informational, engaging, and have these different platforms that can be easy to navigate on the website.
Right. And what you might want to do also, because look, I think one thing I've found is that athletes by nature are reluctant to come forward and admit that they have a weakness. It's just the deal. It's the thing with it, that they that for so many years they've been told how good they are and that they excel at their sport, that they sometimes, the idea of divulging a weakness is kind of strange to them. So I think that in your case, if you say, look, you really need help with your finances, maybe instead what you can do is, instead of having them chase after you and sign up for things, maybe another thing you can also consider doing is having some sort of a membership type site where I could sign up for argument's sake, I'm making this up, $100 a month, and I have access to specific content that will help me understand my finances. So yes, maybe I've already got a financial advisor, but lots of people have been telling me I got to really be careful with my financial advisor. It shouldn't be a family member. I should, understand a little bit more about what they're doing with my money. So I think if you had something where maybe every week or every 2 weeks you did a webinar or put out a PDF, a white paper or something on specific elements of what someone should keep in mind of whether it's contract negotiation, whether it's what kind of insurance they should get, whether it's, what type of legal representation they should have, but stuff like that, where you're giving almost like a checklist guide, like a short, something that's consumable by them, that's easy to understand. I'll take a step back. I'm considering becoming a partner in someone else's business right now, and
Yes.
and oh yeah, well, among a million other things. I appreciate that though, and what's really great about that business, I'm really excited to be a part of it. It's the short version is that it's a publishing company designed for people that don't have the time or the ability to write a book on their own. And so what they do is it's called Verbatim Press. And what they basically do is you speak to them for maybe 10 or 12 hours and they take your words. It's called verbatim for a reason. They are using your words and they basically turn it into a book. But not only turning it into a book, but then they go into the whole, they'll take care of all the design stuff, all the marketing, the PR, the putting it into bookstores. They take care of everything. And so I wish I'd known about this before I wrote my book, because at the end of the day, I know I spent well over the amount that they charge. But on top of that, I spent, hundreds of hours putting together all this stuff for my book. And I wish I had known about this. So anyway, long story short, I might be partnering with them. And
well, so let me know if you do. I'll definitely use that.
You're in. Boom. Congratulations. You're. We needed a soccer player on the team there, but I will. And they're great. I love everything they're doing. But anyway, with that said, they sent me a sort of a partnership agreement thing, right? And I wrote them an email saying, all right, it was like 2 paragraphs saying, here's what I'll do. I'll do the, I'll advise you guys on the business. I'll blah, blah, blah. They came back with like a 20-page legal document that was so confusing that my cousin's married to a lawyer, and he took a look at it when I was out in LA or in Lake Tahoe on vacation, and he was going through it. And there were times where he was just like, what? And I'm thinking, oh my God, this guy is like a 30-year experienced lawyer, and he was baffled by this thing. And again, it's not meant to denigrate what they're trying to do at this company, but there's so much legal stuff there. So if you're the guy, Amobi, that writes content or provides content in easy layman's terms that I could, as an athlete, if I'm 23, I go to your website and I see that just for $97 a month, I can sign up to be, getting not just, let's say, weekly emails with specific content, but I can also watch the occasional webinar or presentation or video or podcast or whatever it is. Then it's absolutely worth. And $97 to me as an athlete is what, like a lunch tip or something. It's nothing. That's $3 a day, right? But I'm getting amazing content that I understand and makes me feel much more powerful when I'm doing anything financially. So it might be something you want to consider is not just doing the one-on-one consultation with the player, but also putting it out to the masses, because there may also be plenty of, for argument's sake, retired athletes across the board, retired Olympians, collegiate athletes, et cetera, that you talked about earlier, or even like Paul Rabel, not Paul Rabel because he's doing pretty darn well, but other, let's say, athletes that played sports that did not make a lot of money, and maybe consuming your content on a lower budget, but it might be a big time. I mean, look, obviously, I'm sure I don't need to do the math for you, but 100 people signed up at your $97 a month thing is going to bring in 10 grand a month.
That's enticing.
It is. In fact, I want your business now. I'm going to send you I'm going to send you an agreement, but it's going to be 20 pages long, and it's going to be filled with stuff you don't understand.
A lot of lawyer business jargon.
Oh yeah, I love them. Not really. Anyway, so I want to jump ahead though to something else that I thought was really interesting. Tell me a little bit more about this. You've been accepted into this Harvard program. Tell me more about that program.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about this. So Harvard recently, one of their renowned professors, Professor Anita Elbers, she started a crossover into business executive education MBA program. And I think it's in its 3rd year now. And basically, it's a crossover into business program for professional athletes, current or retired, and celebrities and sports executives. And it's basically a semester-long course where you go in for orientation on campus for 2 to 3 days, and then you're assigned with a second-year MBA student at Harvard. And throughout throughout the semester, you go over different case studies, and through that, because Harvard's case study based, through that you learn about all the different principles that you need in business and sports and entertainment and stuff like that. And then at the end of the semester, you have like a final presentation. So I'm really excited about it. Some of the past alumni that have spoken very highly of it. So I saw it online and I applied and I was able to, get accepted. I'm not sure the application process was that hard, but
yeah. Did they say, do you have money? You're accepted. Thank you.
I didn't have to take a SAT or, get a letter of recommendation, but to have the opportunity to do that, especially while I'm a free agent, is going to be really cool. So I'm excited to do that.
Now, I'm not familiar with this Harvard. Are they an accredited university? I'm joking.
I think so.
I'm joking. Yeah. That's just my own personal thing. For a million years, I always like to give people some whatever it is about Harvard. But anyway, so.
No, that's funny you did that, because every time if you meet someone from Harvard, you ask them, it's like, oh, is that like a community college?
Yeah,
they'll be quick to correct you.
Oh, yeah. I said Harvard. How do you pronounce that anyway? I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, so it sounds like, look, I mean, you're a busy guy right now, and you've got a lot going on, including the effort to be playing again. What's the best way for people to, let's say I'm an athlete and I'm hearing this podcast and I'm thinking, geez, you know what? I'd love to get his sort of straightforward advice on what I should be doing, not just with my specific money or finances, but almost like long-range financial planning. What's the best? I mean, is the best way to reach out to you through your website? Is it to email you, connect with you? What do you want people to do?
So to be honest, I try to always be active on social media. So whether you reach out via email on the website, frugalathlete.com, on the social media channels, a frugal athlete, at a frugal athlete, whether it's on Instagram or Twitter, on my personal account, not a frugal athlete. Amobi says, AMOBI says, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I'm pretty much everywhere. I try to be everywhere. So cool. If I don't get back to you within 24 hours, definitely within 48 hours. I'm pretty open.
That's great.
In business, it's always good to say yes initially, and then if something happens, you say no later. So always be available.
Always be available. I like that. So I'm going to throw one more bit of advice your way, if you don't mind. Some thoughts I had. I'm a huge user of LinkedIn. I know some, whether it's younger people or more hip people, tend to be, much more on Instagram and Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it might be. But LinkedIn to me is such an amazing tool, because it's not just a place to sort of hang out, but it's also a place and have your profile seen. But you can use it by all kinds of ways to research companies, research people. You can find people a lot easier that way. A lot of times it's hard to find people on other social media because you get that they're not using their real names, or they're kind of using nicknames and stuff. So here though, it's usually, you can find them. And what I want to do is tell you a little bit about your profile real quick and how you might want to make a couple of quick changes. Just to throw it at you, I'm doing this sort of like live coaching, so I hope you don't mind. But,
oh no. But live coaching on a podcast and I don't have to pay? This is what it means to be a frugal athlete right here.
Wait a second. I didn't realize you're not paying me. Anyway, so the way, right off the bat, one thing I would change is your profile. That you got that big banner there, and it's that sort of generic LinkedIn constellation looking thing. I would throw a picture of maybe you kicking a soccer ball on there, or some other images you have from your website, but something else that shows you in much greater detail. But maybe it shows you sort of sitting at a desk with another athlete speaking to them about their finances, but it's a great opportunity to really, really put a big spotlight on what you do.
Okay, perfect.
Secondly is that in your title, it says professional soccer player, frugal athlete, CEO, and student. Well, that's touching, but I don't really care that you're a student, and I'm being brutal. I'm just saying, if I'm the potential client of yours, I don't care that you're the CEO of Frugal Athlete, and I sort of maybe am interested about professional soccer player, but what you may want to do is throw in a little bit more about what you are bringing to the table. So you may want to say, for example, financial strategist, or you could say CEO of Frugal Athlete, but then also put in there, or I know you can't really say financial advisor per se, but you can say, I advise athletes on their finances. Something where I see in your title what it is you're doing. So that way, because a lot of times when people run searches, they only see the name, the photograph, and the title, and maybe where you're located. So I would throw that in there. And then in your summary statement where you say, I'm a professional soccer player student that's just completed my undergraduate degree, blah, blah, blah. I've been a Major League Soccer player since 2010, blah, blah, blah. Well, what you're doing there is you're talking all about yourself. But if you truly want to grow your business, I think what you should do is flip it around to the reader and say instead, if you are an athlete who's got some money in the bank or is looking at a potential payday, and you want to make sure that you're covered, that you've got the right advice in your corner, that you've got the ability to really retire in comfort, I'd love to talk to you, because I've developed some ideas as a result of being not only a Major League Soccer player since 2010, but also a student of academics. I've financial literacy, etc. So almost make it so that you think about if you were the reader of Amobi's profile and you wanted to potentially find someone that could help, and maybe you've seen some content of Amobi's elsewhere, or maybe you've seen some articles that he's written, etc. You go to his profile and you say, oh, wow, here's the guy that's writing this to me. Because yes, wait, I am an athlete that needs some help with that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So try to think about how you might reword that in a way that is writing directly to the reader. Instead of I'm this, me, I'm that, you say, so if you were to look at mine at some point, you don't need to do it now, but you'd see I'm saying, if you are a retired professional athlete or an executive or this, I'd love to talk to you because I've done blah, 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 blah. So it's almost like people saying, oh yeah, that's me. Oh yeah, let me keep reading. So that might be something you want to consider.
Perfect. I just wrote all these down on my notes. So
excellent. Free coaching by Mark Moyer. Never happening again. I'm joking. Anyway, so I'm going to jump right now to the Hit Your Mark segment, which is a fun little segment that I like to do with everybody. And it's really designed to, I don't know, just up the energy a little bit. But the first thing I want to ask you is, looking back at your soccer career, I mean, you've had, you've played with a few different teams, and you've had, certainly a fair amount of a lot of teammates, right? I guess what I'd love to hear from you is, throughout that time, is there any episode or any sort of prank that happened? What was one of the funniest moments you experienced on a team? And maybe it was, a funny prank that was either done to you or done to a teammate that you thought was absolutely hilarious. Give me a.
Oh, wow. I got so many, but I'll give you one because it's kind of financial based. So we all went out to dinner one time, during preseason, you're eating with the team, and then they give you one day where you can go out and eat together, outside of the hotel or outside of the team meals. So we all go out to dinner, rookies, veterans, everyone together. And we play credit card roulette. And if no one knows about the game credit card roulette, everyone puts their credit cards in a hat, has the waiter pick it, and you can either go first one that gets picked has to pay for the whole dinner, last one that gets picked, second to last, whatever. So we did it. And the captains of the team, the veterans, had rigged it so the rookies would have to pay. So the waiter, all the suspense, and it ended up being the rookies. And these are rookies that haven't even been signed yet. So they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to use all my per diem to pay for this meal, and I'm not even on a team, blah, blah, blah. Just got out of college. So you can see the depression on their face immediately hit once they got their credit card called. And everyone's trying to hold a straight face, but eventually we had to tell them. And then, everyone splits the dinner. So that was, that's my little story about that.
Well, that's pretty funny because I have a follow up to that where I was out to dinner with a bunch of guys in Tampa when we were down hanging out with a bunch of friends to watch spring training baseball game, and we sort of got that idea to do that, but it was actually a really sort of honestly a crappy meal at a steakhouse there. It was really like bad service, bad everything, and all I was thinking about was, God, how awful would it be to be stuck paying, several $100s for a crappy meal for all these other yahoos, right? So I said, look, instead of doing the credit card thing where the loser pays for everybody, I said, why don't you just cut someone a break? So instead, the card that picked out, they didn't have to pay, and everyone else just pitched in for them. And they're like, okay, that's a little less painful, right? Yeah. So, and thankfully, it was my card that was drawn, so I didn't have to pay because mine was no. It was something where the steak had to be sent back a couple times because it was cold. Like I'm the guy that never sent stuff back because I used to be, a million years ago, I was a waiter at a very high-end restaurant in Huntington Beach, California. It was called the Olive Garden. I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's a very, very 5-star fancy place. And
breadsticks.
Yeah, I mean, breadsticks are amazing. But I'll never forget, by the way, when I was doing lunches there, every once in a while, I'd get the same group of, we'll say, seasoned ladies. They're lovely ladies. They're older ladies that they'd come in and every Wednesday or whatever, and they would all order the same thing, the unlimited soup and salad. And it was back then it was $5, and they had me running in and out a million times. And then at the end of the meal, they'd be like, son, you've been great. And the tip would be like $1 each. And I'd be like, oh God. But it was a great gig though. Olive Garden, love it. And to this day, if we ever go to an Olive Garden, I have to, of course, torture the waiter or waitress with my stories from 30 years ago. And my kids roll their eyes because they've heard this stuff before. But anyway, so switching gears again, who would you say is your biggest, we'll say, idol in sports? I'm not even going to say in soccer, but in sports in general. And who is that idol? But then also, have you ever had a chance to meet him or her?
Oh, wow. So biggest idol growing up was Michael Jordan. Okay. I feel like he was everyone's idol. So I used to play basketball at a high level competitively until soccer kind of made me have to quit. So playing AAU, we were at a tournament in Vegas, and we had the opportunity, if we would have won in the quarterfinals, we would have played Michael Jordan's son's team. I think the son his age was Marcus. I think it was Marcus. Okay. So we were all excited, because we had heard rumors that Michael Jordan was in town, he's going to watch. So we're definitely just 13-year-olds old wanting to play in front of Michael Jordan. But we ended up losing, so we didn't get to play his team, his son's team, sorry. So we ended up going to the game to watch because everyone knew that Michael Jordan at that point was going to be at the game.
Oh, yeah? And was he there?
Yeah, he was there. He was there. He had his family there, his whole security people. But it was when you're at a game and you want to say hi to a superstar, but everyone's waiting for the first one to do it because you don't know if he's going to say no or yes or to sign your autograph. So he was there, but I didn't get to meet him, unfortunately.
Got it. So tell me about a time that you've met an idol and you were kind of speechless, like you were doing the whole hey.
To be honest, this never happened, to be honest. I'm trying to think.
That's great. Yeah. So you're obviously comfortable with fame and fortune. I like that.
Not even. It's just I feel like the guys that are famous and fortunate to be in their situations, they're all down to earth. Like what I found with professional athletes, whether it's in the NBA, NFL, these bigger sports, I don't know if it's because I'm an athlete myself, but I just feel like, sometimes the persona that they have on TV is the complete opposite of how they are, right. when I've met them. And luckily I've been in this environment for quite a while where, you just meet these people, whether it's out to dinner or at certain events that, they're just all down to earth, really, really cool people. So
usually, that's good. All right, last two last questions. Ready? One is in your soccer career, who would you say was the toughest guy to defend against?
Toughest guy would probably be Robbie Keane. Robbie Keane, he used to play for LA Galaxy, and he was like one of those when I used to play center back defender. He was one of those guys that would be offsides, like just stay offside, so you like wouldn't worry about him. And then right when the play is like in the area, he would go back onside and like try to run behind you. So you always have to like be aware of where he was at, and he was really good at his craft. When LA Galaxy was at their high mark, he was the focal point of their team. And he was a great player.
Oh, great answer. Great answer. Last question. 3 people that you would have a drink with if you could today.
Oh, wow. Right now? Ooh, I feel like the list is ever changing. So let's go.
They can be dead, by the way. It's okay. It's okay to drink with dead people.
Malcolm X.
Okay.
That's one. Dang, who's the other one? Dang, putting me on the spot.
I know. That's the whole point.
Yeah, right. What's your mark? Okay. Malcolm X, Michael Jordan, and then let's go Bill Gates.
There you go.
Yeah.
Actually, I had another guy who said, he said Martin Luther King, and then he said Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. And I'm like, well, aren't they kind of the same guy? Whatever.
Exactly.
But whatever works. Anyway, well, listen, I really appreciate your time today. It was a blast because number one, I love talking to people that are very passionate about what they are doing and the work that they're doing on behalf of other people. And clearly you're trying to elevate the education and the understanding of the financial side of things for athletes. And that's an area that I think is completely underserved. And I think what you're trying to do is by shining a light on the issues is fantastic. So keep up the great work with that. I also think that any team out there, and I want to cut your contract, of course, but any soccer team out there, football team, whatever you call it, you gotta bring him in, man. He's the man.
I know you know some people.
I know some people. You know some people. Let's get you going, man. Let's get you back on the pitch.
I appreciate it.
And but it's been great chatting with you, Amobi, and have a great rest of this year. I know that you're going to be really hitting a home run or scoring a goal, whatever the right analogy is for your company, but also your continued education and what you're doing. So thanks again for joining me today.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to connect. Definitely will be following you on LinkedIn and YouTube because I'm subscribed. And I'm also reading your book right now. So please let me know what ends up happening with the company, because if I could do a book like that, that's way easier than actually writing and editing and transcribing.
I can't even begin to tell you how much I agree with you, but that's great. I'll tell you all about it later. Well, thanks for the kind words. I hope you're enjoying the book. Does it make sense so far?
Yeah, it's great. I think every athlete should read it for sure.
For sure, it's right.
Whether you're a student athlete or professional athlete, and I'm not even just trying to do it like for promo. Like I'm actually being serious. It's a really good book.
Yeah, I'm not doing it for promo either, but I think it's an awesome book and it's amazing. You should have all run out and buy it, but that's not a promotion. I'm messing with you. But thanks again. Well, listen, have a great rest of your day. Thanks for your time, and we'll be talking soon.
For sure.
Thanks so much for joining us today on this episode of Make Your Mark Podcast. The goal of the podcast is to help you find ways to make your mark, to succeed in life, and to jump past your competition. Be sure to leave me a review on iTunes and Stitcher, and subscribe to be the first to hear new episodes. If you're looking for ways to make your mark, send me an email, mark@markmoyer.com, and I'll get back to you right away. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.